For number 14, we're asked to find the absolute max and absolute min, and we know that we will be able to find both because we have a bounded region from -2 to +3. So let's find the first derivative, and that would be 2x cubed minus 2x squared minus 4x. We're going to figure out where that first derivative is 0 or where it's undefined, and I think we can tell that it will not be undefined anywhere, so we're just going to look for where that first derivative equals 0. Okay, we're going to factor out a common factor of 2x. That leaves us with x squared minus x minus 2. We're going to factor a little bit more. That's x and x, 2 and 1, with a +1 and a -2. So we set each one of these factors equal to 0. We're going to get x equals 0, x equals -1, and x equals +2. Alright, here are 3 x values that represent potential relative maxes and mins within our boundaries. And let's double check to make sure that all 3 of them are within the boundaries before we check. Alright, then we're going to find g of 0. We're going to find g of -1. We're going to find g of 2. We're going to compare all of those relative maxes and mins, see which one's the absolute. Then we're also going to compare the endpoints as well. So g of -2 and g of 3. So g of 0, if we put 0 in place of x, we're going to get 3. Just be left with a constant term. G of -1, so we're going to put in 1/2. So we're going to do 1/2 x to the 4th power, so that's -1 to the 4th power, minus 2 times -1 cubed, minus 2 times -1 squared, plus 3. So we'll end up getting -1 to the 4th is 1, so that's 1/2. And this would be a -1 cubed, that would be -1, so that's +2/3. -1 squared would be a +1, so we're left with -2 and then plus 3. Scoot all of these down a little bit. So we'll end up with 1/2 plus 2/3 plus 1. Think about that as 1 over 1. Common denominator would be 6. So we'll end up with 3 over 6 plus 4 over 6 plus 6 over 6. And we add all those together, we get 13 over 6. And of course, that would be 2 and 1/6. Alright, then let's plug in g of 2. So that would be 1/2, 2 to the 4th, minus 2/3, 2 to the 3rd, minus 2, 2 squared plus 3. 2 to the power of 4 is 16. Then we take half of that, we get 8. 2 cubed is 8, so that's minus 16 over 3. And this is going to be -8 plus 3. So we see 8, +8 and -8 are going to cancel each other out. So we're left with -16 over 3 plus 3. Let's give that a common denominator. So that's plus 9 over 3, so we get -7/3, which, let's write the equivalent of that in as a mixed fraction. So that's, we said that was -7/3. 2 goes into 7 2 times, with a remainder of 1/3. So -2 and 1/3. Alright, g of -2. -2 to the power of 4 is 16 again. Then we take half of that, we get 8. -2 cubed is -8 times up -2, so we get positive 16 over 3 this time. This is going to give us a -8 again, plus 3. So we get something very similar. 8s will cancel. And we're going to give this a common denominator again. So this time we end up with a positive 16 over 3 plus 9 over 3, which gives us 25 over 3, which as a mixed number, that's 8 1/3. And then lastly, we're going to put in g of 3. Okay, this gives us 81, and half of 81 would be 81 over 2. And this is going to be 27 times negative 2, that would be negative 54 over 3. This would be 9 times 2, that's minus 18 plus 3. So we get 81 over 2 minus 54 over 3 minus 15. Let's give it a common denominator of 6. So this is times 3 times 3 times 2 times 2 times 6 times 6. We end up with 243 over 6 minus 108 over 6 minus 90 over 6. So we end up with 45 over 6, which reduces to be 15 over 2. And as a decimal value, or let's write it as a mixed number like the others, that would be 7, and then remainder of 1/2. All right, so let's compare all of these values and see which one is the absolute max and absolute min. It looks like we have only one negative value, so this right here would be our absolute minimum. So the absolute minimum value for this function, so we're going to say the absolute minimum value of f, and of course we're referring to on this particular interval, so let's just mention that. On this interval would be negative 2 1/3, and it occurs at the point 2, negative 2 1/3. Okay, then we also know that we will be able to find an absolute max of this function on this interval. And the absolute maximum value looks like 8 1/3. Looks like the largest value. So the absolute max would be 8 1/3, and it occurs at the point negative 2, 8 1/3.